Chapter 40. Kai. I woke up on the edge of a mountain. Plummet Mountain. I only know this because I've been here before with Father, casually conquering more fears and such. But I'm not alone. Andy groans beside me, her eyes fluttering open before she bolts upright, head swiveling as she scans her surrounding, just as I had done a few minutes prior. My head is pounding. Between all the alcohol, the fights last night, and the drug that knocked me out to be dragged here, I felt better on the battlefield. But upon arriving at Plummet, the first thing I noticed was the pin scribbled on my hand. My slanted, hasty handwriting is scrolled across my palm, relaying a very important message. She said I could touch her when I'm sober. I'm shocked that I have no recollection of writing this, considering how vividly I remember everything else about last night. Peyton pressed against me, our conversation, her panic before I untied the laces of her dress. My lips twitch the thought before I'm suppressing a smile when I remember how she pinned Blair during the fight and made her bleed. Plagues, what's going on? Braxton is up now, blinking in the afternoon sunshine. Blair's lilac hair shimmers behind him as she sits up, looking just as confused and tense. We eye each other, remembering how brutally we fought last night and how we were forced apart before we could finish. I pull the crumpled note from my pocket and toss it on the dirt before us. We were left with this. I hear Blair scoff as she snatches the paper up and reads aloud, her tone bored. Welcome to trial number 2. We think a little teamwork is due. You have 12 hours to reach the top. To beat the other team, you must climb non-stop. You've got to be kidding me, Andy grumbles beside me, running her hands over her dirty face. I'm sorry, Blair huffs. We're supposed to work together. Father is having fun playing with us. He had us fight each other last night to fuel the tension between contestants and leave us wanting to tear each other apart. We were forced through several rounds of fights against random opponents, lasting well into the evening and only aiding our fatigue. And now, we're forced to work side by side while fighting the urge to finish what we started last night. I stand to my feet, head throbbing as I scan the sky. The sun tells me that it's nearly mid-afternoon, which means we'll be climbing through the night. Riveting. We're losing daylight, I say with a sigh. Let's get a move on. Then we are climbing, confused by this trial and how we are expected to work together rather than rip each other apart. Plummet isn't an enormous mountain, but it is intimidating, to say the least. For the time being, we are trudging through the thick barrier of trees and rocky terrain at its base. Once we get higher, the trees will thin, replaced with steeper rocks and slippery slopes. Other than its deadly terrain, Plummet is also home to even deadlier animals. We'll be climbing for 12 hours straight with no food, no water, no weapons, and no trust in one another. I spot sights out of the corner of my eye, swift and silent beside us as they document our progress. There must be dozens of them stationed all along the mountainside, trading off with one another, waiting for us to come into their range. Blair and Braxton climb stiffly nearby, eyeing one another with equal amounts of suspicion, while Andy stays close to my side, reassuring me of where her loyalties lie. She has become my only source of entertainment, her rambling taking my mind off the mountain looming above. I listened to her complain about how she would have already transformed into a falcon and left us all in the dust if it weren't for us tying her down with our teamwork. Okay, she says, slightly breathless after climbing for nearly 2 hours already. I spy with my little eye. Oh, plagues, make it stop, Blair whines, picking up a pine cone with her mind and chucking it at Andy. You've been spying things for nearly an hour, despite being the only one playing. It's tempting me to forget about this teamwork thing and rip your head off. She's practically growling while Andy is grinning. You know, Andy says with a smug smile, you haven't changed one bit, Blair. She shrugs. Once a bitch, always a bitch, I suppose. With that, Blair raises an army of pine cones off the ground in a silent threat. I would keep your mouth shut if I were you, or you might find a pine cone lodged in your throat. You're only proving my point. Andy sing-songs. Blair's abandoned the pine cones for one of the many giant rocks littering the ground. She sends it flying towards Andy and inevitably flying towards me in the process. With the flick of a hand and the borrowing of Blair's ability, the boulder changes directions, flying away from us and crashing into a nearby tree. That's enough, ladies. My tone is bored, portraying my current mood. I'd rather not be in the middle of this. Braxton grunts in agreement, and we fall into a tense silence as we continue to climb. The sun crawls across the sky at a slow pace, beating down on us until sweat is rolling down my face and my throat aches for water. Then, a scream shatters the silence. I spin to find Andy clutching her calf, her eyes glued to the ground. Guy! Her voice is little more than a whisper. Don't move. I follow her gaze to where dozens of beady black eyes stare back at me, forked tongues flicking. Snakes, huge and hungry. I can't even make out how many of them there are, with all the underbrush and rocks scattering the ground. But I know that there are enough for me to be worried. Blair bites back a scream when she spots the slithering creatures surrounding us, while Braxton swears under his breath. All right, I say slowly, never taking my eyes off the ground. This is gonna have to be you and I, Blair. She turns her wide gaze on me, her cold demeanor thawing from fear. What do we do? She whispers harshly, trying to hide her horror. I draw out a breath, not sure if I have an answer for her. The snake nearest to me is drawing closer by the second, and I eye it, mind reeling. I'll deal with the snakes over here. I nod to where Andy and I stand, and you handle yours over there. Handle? She hisses, sounding like one of the snakes encircling us. Yes, handle, I sigh. It's not a great plan, but just throw them. Throw them? Ready? I ask, ignoring her question. She grumbles something, and I take that as a yes. Good. I pause. Go. I reach out blindly with Blair's power towards the snakes slithering at our feet. I lift 3 of their massive bodies off the ground and send them flying far down the mountain. I hear a chorus of hisses and spot 2 more before letting them sail through the air after their friends. There are dozens of them. Blair and I are sending snakes flying left and right, all of us dodging and dancing on our feet when they get too close. I hear a yelp from Andy and spin to see a snake lunging towards her, mouth wide and fangs ready to sink into flesh. I suspend it in the air before it can add another bite to Andy's leg. After finally scrambling up and away from the nest of snakes, Andy staggers, and I'm at her side in a heartbeat. He got bit. It's not a question. Let me see. Her face is pale as she peels her hand from her leg, revealing 2 deep fang wounds, blood dribbling down her foot and into her shoes. I brush a strand of deep red hair from her sticky forehead, searching her eyes. How do you feel? Well, she chokes on a laugh. My pride seems to be hurting more than I am. I didn't even see the snake coming. And then the rest of them showed up and... I'm sorry. She trails off, focusing on the sun now beginning to sink behind the mountain. Hey, none of us saw them, remember? But I need you to tell me how you're feeling. Plagues, please don't be venomous. I feel all right. It hurts like hell, but I'm all right. For now. The unspoken words hang in the air between us. I'm hoping that the only problem is the pain she is in and nothing more. Hoping that I don't almost lose another one of the few people I can't afford to. Can you walk? I ask. She takes a step, her face scrunching in pain. Yeah, I'm fine. Bullshit, I mutter before crouching down in front of her. Come on, get on my back. I throw her a small smile over my shoulder. Just like old times. She laughs hoarsely. Seriously, I'm fine. Well, clearly you're not. Blair's agitated voice cuts in. So get on his damn back so we can get a move on. She starts climbing upwards, muttering something that sounds like, "Plagues, I hate teamwork." I could try to transform into a small animal so I'm easier to carry. Andy sounds doubtful, but I'm not sure I could hold that state for long. Save your energy. Come on, up you go. I help her onto my back, gripping the back of her knees as she grips my shoulders. She's tall and lanky, her weight barely bothersome. For now. And then we are climbing again.
Chapter 41. Payton. There is a rock in my shoe. The same one that's been there for the past half hour. But my hands are too busy keeping me from falling to my death to do anything about it. We've been climbing for hours. There are far fewer trees now, giving way to steep slopes covered in slippery plants. My hands are grasping at large boulders as I catch my breath, turning my eyes towards our destination. The peak. Despite our constant climbing, it still looms far above us. Jax is beside me, panting just as hard as I am. "I think we're out of shape," I say breathlessly. He flashes a smile before rasping, "You think?" I huff out a laugh while forcing my feet to move again. My legs are shaky, strained from climbing nonstop for hours with no food and no water to aid us. I hold out a hand to Jax, helping him over a particularly steep patch of rock, returning a favor he has done for me multiple times. How cute. Jax and I stiffen at the sound of that voice, considering that the owner of it tried to kill the both of us. I bite my tongue, forcing myself to stamp down the flare of anger igniting inside of me and ignoring him instead. Ace sighs dramatically as he continues to climb nearby. Well, this is awkward. The three of us being paired together to be a team. It's not awkward. It's intentional. Everything the king does is deliberate, twisted, and this trial is no exception. The fights, the teams, and the tension between contestants are all calculated. What, are you gonna ignore me until we reach the top? Ace croons from behind. I'm thankful that Jax happens to be the other elite I'm paired with, so I don't have to fight the urge to kill both of my teammates. Though that may be a bad thing, considering that I likely trust Jax too much. But I ignore the thought, just like the boy behind me, and continue carefully climbing. At least... Ace's words die on his tongue before he cries out, "Payton, look out!" I turn to face him, and instead spot the giant snake slithering around my ankles. A strangled scream tears from my throat before I can stop it, and I stumble. My ankle catches on a rock, and I trip, falling backward. The last thing I see before I'm about to fall down the mountain, and likely to my death, is the snake scattering into shadows when my foot connects with it. Illusion. But it's too late. My body is falling, and I'm going to tumble down the slope with no way to stop myself. What a pathetic way to die. Hands are suddenly at my back, pushing and pulling me to my feet before I can collide with the rocks and roll down the mountain. "I got you," Jax grits out behind me. "I think." I reach out a hand and claw at the closest jagged rock, helping to get my feet beneath me. When I'm standing mostly upright on unsteady legs, Jax blinks back in front of me, sweaty and panting. I'm sure I look no different, but I offer him a weak smile and hope he sees the gratitude in my gaze. This boy blinked behind his opponent to save me from... The thought vanishes from my head, along with any other rational one that might have been residing there. I whirl on Ace even as I cling to a rock, not trusting my shaking body. His smile is cold. "Careful. I wouldn't want my teammate to get hurt." "You!" I spit. I'm about to slide down the slope and strangle him with my bare hands. "Don't," Jax says quietly. "Not yet." I hesitate, slowly returning my eyes to his dark ones. After a long pause and a deep breath, I nod. Jax is not only right for reminding me I can't kill our teammate, but he's clearly far better at reining in his rage than I am. So I stiffly turn back towards the mountain, focusing all my attention on scaling it. We climb in silence for a moment, before I clear my dry throat and say softly, "Thank you, Jax. You didn't have to help me, but you did." "Of course I helped you," he says with a shrug. "Besides, I'm not sure my brothers would forgive me if I hadn't." His brothers. That night, Kai and I danced during the first trial, the night we spoke so openly about our lives, was when I had first learned of just how close the princes truly are with Jax. Kai briefly told me of the advisor's shipwreck on the shallows, and how they took their son in when he was barely 6. I force out a quiet laugh. I don't know. I'm sure Kai wouldn't mind having less competition. He gives me an odd look, clearly trying not to laugh. "Not if that competition is you," I huff in response, but Jax carries on cheerfully. "Speaking of Kai, I wonder how he is handling this." "Handling what?" Jax pulls himself over a jagged rock with a grunt before breathlessly saying, "The mountain." When my expression remains confused, Jax adds, "He hates heights." "What?" I choke out. But I watched him climb up one of the pines in the Whispers during the first trial. He seemed fine. Jax finishes for me with a laugh. Calm, even? Yeah, he's pretty good at hiding what he feels. Just another mask he slips on, I mutter under my breath. Jax nods, causing a bead of sweat to roll down his face. He's gotten a lot better with heights, though, but only because of all the training the king put him through. I knew enough about the king's twisted training, but Kai had never mentioned anything about his fear of heights. What did the king do? He made him climb the highest trees in the Whispers, over and over again until he was convinced Kai had gotten over his fear. What? My voice is as shaky as the legs carrying me up this mountain. His own father forced him to relive his worst fear over and over again. It seems that the torture Kai spoke of enduring was not all physical. I was little when Kai was going through most of his training to be the future enforcer, but I'll never forget the nights he would come home covered in blood and tears. Jax looks down at his feet, suddenly more serious than I've ever seen him before. I think he was afraid that I'd be scared of him, so he'd sneak back into his room every night. But I still caught glimpses of him, heard him hacking at his bedposts with a sword. We climb in silence for a moment, and I ignore my screaming thoughts, just as I ignore the tightness in my throat and the pressure behind my eyes. Then a weary smile spreads across Jax's lips as he says, "But I couldn't ask for better brothers." "I'd hate to interrupt your cute conversation," Ace drawls. "But am I the only one who feels that?" I'm about to dismiss what is likely another attempt to trick me with an illusion when I start to feel it. A slight tremor runs through me, coming from the mountain. The small rocks are rattling around us, and I bend closer to the ground, clutching at anything to hold on to. Rock slide, I breathe. Dread floods me, followed quickly by determination. I will not die today, least of all from rocks. I swallow down my panic at the sound of heavy boulders tumbling towards us, crashing against one another as they race to crush us. "So," Jax pants beside me, "what's the plan?" "Don't die," I say simply. "How incredibly helpful," Ace mutters, far too casually for our current situation. The rumble of rocks grows louder as I watch the boulders come tumbling towards us. Dodging them is far easier said than done. The mountainside is steep, making it hard to jump around without fear of falling to our deaths. I'm grasping at plants and divots in the rocks beneath me as I scramble out of the way of the rolling boulders. Jax is blinking out of the path of falling rocks, flickering in and out of my vision. Ace is somewhere behind me, and if I'm lucky, a boulder has already sent him tumbling down the mountain. I scramble to the right, barely saving my arm from being crushed. Then I jump to the left and something collides with the side of my head. Spots dance in my vision. I'm dizzy, dazed, only vaguely comprehending that my name is being shouted. I look up just in time to see that I'm about to be flattened by a boulder. I dive out of the way, landing hard as I claw at anything to grab hold of. And as quickly as it happened, the mountain seems to still beneath me, as the rocks slowly stop their slide. I struggle to my feet, blinking away the hot, heavy liquid that is threatening to spill into my eyes. I can feel the blood oozing down the side of my face, can feel the pounding pain of the wound there. I'm almost certain I have a concussion, just like I'm almost certain I'm going to puke. "Jax, are you all right?" I call, taking a step forward and reaching out to steady myself against the rocks. Yes, I think I'm going to be sick. "I'm okay," he calls, blinking in front of me. We are both covered in scrapes and bruises already begin to bloom across our skin. "Thank you for asking, Peyton. I am quite all right," Ace says, his voice lacking any tone or tenderness. I wipe the back of my hand over my eye, clearing it of the blood that is dripping from my wound. How unfortunate.
Chapter 42. Kai. Everything aches. My feet, my back, my body. I'm achingly tired, achingly hungry, and achingly aware of how annoyed I am with myself because of it. I've endured torture, faced my worst fears, led armies into battle, and yet climbing a mountain with a hangover may just be the death of me. Andy clinging to my back isn't helping either. It's not her weight that's the problem, especially since I'm borrowing Braxton's strength. No, it's the fact that she is so damn lanky that her long limbs are hindering my climbing. "It's absurd how bony you are," I mumble, earning a weak punch in the shoulder. Good. At least she has the strength to hit me. "When we make it out of here," I continue casually, "I'll make sticky buns myself to fatten you up." She grunts her approval of that idea, her voice weak. She's fading, fast. Her skin is sickly pale, only emphasized by the moonlight, and her breathing is quick and shallow. I know the difference between pain and venom, and this is certainly the latter. So, I keep her awake, keep her occupied. My voice is low as I quietly talk to her, teasing her and reminiscing on old times. She mostly responds with breathy laughs or a nod of her head, but I'll take anything over silence. The moon is our only guide, casting pale light that does little to illuminate the mountain we have been climbing since the moment we woke up. The terrain is so steep now that Andy is clinging to me with her legs wrapped around my waist, freeing my hands to help me climb. I feel her head slump against my shoulder, overcome by exhaustion and excruciating pain. "Hey," I say softly, gently jostling her to keep her awake. "We're almost there. Just a little longer." I feel her nod wearily and try to pick up my pace. I can see the flat plateau of the peak looming above us. Nearly there. I'm climbing, hands scraping at the stone and rocks slipping from beneath me. I've lost my footing, lost my hold more than once, and almost sent us falling to an unfortunate death. But we are nearly there. This nightmare is nearly over. We're nearly free. I see the shadows of figures lined all around us, awaiting us. The sights watch as we scramble to the top, breathless and beaded with sweat, starving and exhausted, exhilarated. We've done it. I drag myself over the edge, Andy clinging to me fiercely. Only my dignity forces me to my feet, though fatigue threatens to cripple me. "We did it." Braxton exhales beside me as we all stand, stunned. The plateau is a large slab of uneven rock and dirt, stretching far wider than it appears from below. I look around, scanning my surroundings, spotting dozens of sights dotting the peak. Then my eyes sweep over a tall, wooden pole, buried into the ground at the far end of the peak. A green, battered flag hangs at its top, whipping in the wind. What new game is this? Movement stirs in the corner of my eye, and I squint in the dim light to focus on the figures climbing up the opposite side of the plateau, joining us. And despite the darkness, I know exactly who they are. Jax, Ace, Peyton. We all stare at each other, each group stunned and still, A sight steps forward, his voice clear as he reads a message off the tattered paper in his hand.
We are glad you learned to work as one, but this trial is not done. The rules of the game have changed a bit, so the first to capture the flag will win it.
He clears his throat before continuing.
There can only be one winner among you. The only question is, who?
Silence. Stillness. His words sink in, seeping their way into my brain. I shouldn't be surprised. This will make for great entertainment. Watching us work together only to tear each other apart in the end. Because it was too easy, despite how very difficult it was to reach the top of Plummet. And I should know by now that there is always a catch, always a price. My own father taught me that. We all stare at each other, eyes shifting between our competition and the ragged flag that has suddenly become so vital to our victory. And then we turn on one another. Chaos.
Chapter 43. Payton. Darkness and destruction are all I know. The two groups crash together, powers clashing, shouts cutting through the night. But when my eyes find his in the dim light, I don't hesitate before my fist collides with his jaw. Ace stumbles back, stunned by the force and fury I packed into the punch. I smile at the sight. I've been itching to do that all day. Every day. The fight around us falls away. All I see is him and the red blurring my vision, the cause of both blood and rage morphing together. I'm going to kill him. My foot sinks into his stomach, forcing the air from his lungs before I throw a jab at his nose, feeling it crack with sickening delight. My body is my only weapon. I have no knives, no bow, no swords to hide behind, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I want to do this with my bare hands. I'm almost impressed by how twisted and talented the king is at putting on a show. He knew that we went into this trial hoping to get revenge, and instead told us to work together. So our enemies became our teammates. But now, the king is giving us and the people what they want. We are tearing each other apart. Ace has finally caught his breath, panting as he smirks up at me, hands resting on his knees. Oh, you've just been waiting to do that, haven't you? Ever since the coach ride to the castle, actually, I say, remembering how I disliked him even then, even before he attempted to kill me. Twice. Well, I've never really liked you much either, he spits, as blood streams from his nose and drips down to his chin. I move, aiming to send a kick cracking into his temple, but I'm suddenly shrouded in darkness. It's as though he's thrown a heavy blanket over my head, smothering the light around me. Now I'm angry and annoyed. But I know how this game works, and wave my arms, taking a few steps forward. The illusion pulls apart, and, like smoke, the darkness blows away on the wind. I blink, eyes adjusting as I try to find Ace in the commotion. And then, I'm choking. The air is being cut off from my lungs, my windpipe being crushed. A hard, rough object is pressed against my throat, forcing me to gasp as I try to gulp down air. I claw at the thing pressing against my neck, the thing separating me from life and death. I kick at Ace behind me, twisting and fighting to slip out of his hold. Rough bark is biting into my nails as I tear at it, trying to rid myself of its choking hold on me. I'm being strangled with a stick. A stick. My vision is spotting, the wound on my head throbbing, my lungs screaming for air. No, not today. Death can claim me when it finds a less pathetic way to end my existence. I still my frantic hands and stop struggling, willing myself to slump, to sag, to stop looking like I'm alive and seething with anger. I let my knees buckle, the branch sliding from my neck as I crumble to the ground. Never forget that your wit is a weapon to be wielded, if only your mind is as sharp as your blade. My father's words echo in my head, reminding me that not all battles are won with brawn. So I'll win this one with brains. My limbs are a tangled mess in the dirt, and my head has landed painfully on a jagged rock. But I can breathe again. Barely. I force myself to take shallow breaths, willing my attacker to step closer and finish the job. Boots crunch over loose rocks before a body crouches over my limp one. A deep, labored sigh washes over me, and the faintest brush of fingers over my brow nearly makes me flinch. Such a shame that the pretty ones are always bitches. Ace tucks a strand of hair behind my ear, almost gently. It makes me sick. Such a shame. Such a waste. His hands begin to pull back, and I know I need to act. My eyes fly open, and his do the same as he looks at me, shocked. He's crouched over my body, one of his hands caught in my own, and the other clutching a rock, only slightly smaller than the size of my head. He was going to bash my skull in. In one quick movement, I twist his arm at an odd angle, hearing the bone snap and a scream tear from his throat. I lift my legs and push my feet against his chest, throwing him sideways with a powerful push. He's thrown onto his back beside me, the rock tumbling from his hand. I'm on top of him within the next beat of my hammering heart. My knees are pressing his arms to the ground, letting my full weight settle on his chest. I bring my hand down on his wrist, pressing on the broken bone now jutting against his skin. I never thought a scream could bring me so much joy. Such a shame I don't have my knife to carve out your black heart. I'm smiling, relishing the pure hatred flaring in his eyes, knowing he must see the same reflected in my own gaze. Such a shame. When did I become this vicious? Something catches my eye, and my attention darts to the wispy figures now encircling us. It's me. Dozens of sickly, pale paedons. They're stumbling closer, arms outstretched and reaching for me. They're pushing towards me as they plead for help, plead to be put out of their misery. I stare at them, and they stare at me. And then I smile, sad and slow. I'm not afraid of myself anymore, I whisper. That girl, that haunted, weak girl begging for help, for love, is me. Without her, I wouldn't be who I am today. I'm still haunted, maybe even still hoping for love, but I'm no longer weak because of it. And when my gaze slides back to Ace, I'm no longer smiling. You think you can use myself against me? Again? My laugh is humorless. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, well, you won't get a chance to do that, now will you? I cock my head, peering down at his face now twisted in pain. I grab the rock that was intended for my skull and raise it above his instead. Goodbye, Ace, I say breathlessly, wondering if I should be feeling any remorse for this boy. Something shifts in my peripheral. The illusions are gone now, drifting away as Ace weakens from pain beneath me, allowing me to dare a glance at the figure close by. He is covered in blood, most of which likely doesn't even belong to him. Our eyes meet, and the sound of the fight around me that was once so deafening begins to dull. The connection is electric, empowering even, as he watches me but does nothing to stand in my way. Does nothing to try and convince me not to take a life. Does nothing because he knows I can handle myself. Does nothing because Kai would do no differently. The boy beneath me tried to kill his brother, tried to get Kai to do it for him. And as I stare into the gray eyes of the prince, the future enforcer, the deliverer of death, I know that he has been patiently waiting to kill him, patiently waiting for revenge. And yet, he is simply standing there, dripping with blood, and doing nothing to stop me from ripping his revenge away from him. This is not my life to take. I would kill you. My voice is stern and strong, loud enough for Kai to hear. I see Ace's eyes light up with the assumption that I'm too weak to go through with ending his life. How very wrong he is. But you are not mine to kill. I finish, watching as his eyes darken, hatred replacing hope. My gaze finds Kai's again, his eyes bright in the moonlight and smoldering like smoke from a fire. A muscle ticks in his jaw, his hands twitch at his sides. I give him a single, slow nod. And then he is striding towards us, shadows clinging to his silhouette. I barely have time to get off Ace before Kai is hoisting him to his feet with powerful arms. You're lucky I don't have the time or patience to rip you limb from limb at the moment. Then Kai's eyes flick to me, flick over me. The future enforcer is resisting his urge for revenge and instead scanning my body for injuries. The thought has me swallowing the lump in my throat as his gaze lingers on the gash still gushing on my head before slowly sliding to my neck, which is likely already bruising. Then his eyes dart to something far behind me. The flag. No one has made it there yet, too busy fighting and focused on revenge to break away. When I look back at Kai, his eyes are already trained on me. Go, he murmurs the word, nodding towards the flag that will bring me victory. Win this damn thing, Gray. I blink at him, but his attention is already back on the task in front of him. So I turn towards the flag. My boots scrape against the rocks beneath my feet as I stride towards that seemingly insignificant piece of cloth. Screams join the shouts and cries of the fight, and I don't need to turn around to know that Kai has begun his work on Ace. I ignore it, my focus solely on the flag. And then, I'm suddenly standing beneath it, looking up at my prize, looking up at my victory. And no one stops me as I rip off the flag.
Chapter 44. Kai. Funny how killing makes me feel most alive. I feel lighter than I have in days. My mind is clearer, sharper, now that thoughts of Ace are no longer consuming it. My only regret is that I didn't have more time to play with him. And if I were a better man, that thought might have repulsed me. The recap of the trial was tedious, mostly consisting of each team trudging up the mountain in silence. But the final fight atop the peak was enough to have the bored crowd cheering. The chaos was captured by the sights and replayed for me to relive. I watched Peyton meet my eyes and grant me a gift, the gift of a life. The gift to take a life. She handed Ace over to me despite wanting to dole out his death herself. She let me have my revenge without even knowing that it was partially for her. Because before I wanted to kill Ace for nearly killing Jax, I wanted to kill Ace for nearly killing Peyton. Death is no stranger to me. I've killed more than I can count, and the blood clinging to my hands and staining my soul can never be scrubbed clean. And yet, she looked at me as if I was deserving of Ace, of kindness, of her. I only want to be deserving of her. I watched as death claimed another victim. Blair was the one who brutally took Braxton's life. Well, she can't take all the credit. I may have helped. Her mind sent a blunt branch that was scattered on the ground into his chest. Flesh and bone tore apart, making room for the new addition impaling his body. It slowly leached the life from his surprised eyes before he fell to the ground. But the surprise in Braxton's gaze reflected in Blair's. She wasn't aiming for Braxton. No, that blunt, brutal death was heading for the silver-haired girl striding unsuspectingly towards her victory. I may have cheated death of its intended victim, but I gave it a life, nonetheless. I borrowed Blair's power and nudged fate in another direction, and it found Braxton. But I wouldn't hesitate to do it again, and again, and again, to save that silver-haired girl. Quite the team, Death and I. But I've had 3 days to recover from the trial. 3 long days spent in the training ground, slicked with sweat, or locked within a study with my father's silencer, where I am also likely drenched in sweat. Damien pushes me hard, smothering me with his ability while I fight to use it against him. Whether it's my body or brain aching from either type of training, I welcome it. Distraction is the best form of passing the time, and I seem to have a lot of things I wish to be distracted from these days.
Kai? Are you listening, boy?
I give my head a shake, returning to the conversation at hand. Intently, Father. The king sighs deeply, and Kit cuts me a look. We've been stuffed in this study for hours, discussing everything from guard rotations to the resistance, which we have no new information on since the few prisoners from the attack at the first ball are now all dead. Although Father doesn't seem particularly concerned by that fact now, and has instead been talking about the trials for far longer than I have been listening. He eyes the two of us as he asks slowly,
It is interesting how the slumber girl won this last one, don't you think?
I stiffen, and I think Kit might have done the same. I all but handed the victory to her, choosing revenge over winning, torture over triumph. I wonder if Father knows this, knows that I let her walk over to that flag without another thought, knows that I smiled at the sight of her, strong and sure, as she raised that flag into the air. She won fairly. I don't find that interesting. The words are out of my mouth before I can think better of them. A humorless chuckle fills the room.
That's just the thing,
Father says, green eyes piercing through me in a way Kit's never could.
Slummers don't win.
I stiffen at the word he spits, but don't dare to break his stare. And yet she did. Kit shoots me a look, but my eyes are pinned on the king as he says,
And you better not let it happen again. Don't forget that it is you who must win these trials, and if you need me to remind you what will happen if you don't, I will.
He leans forward, his voice lethal.
I trained you for this, so you will not disappoint me. Understood, Enforcer?
The threat in his tone is clear, and I hear it ringing in my ears. Lose, and you are nothing. Understood, Your Majesty. And with that, I stand on my feet and stride out the door. I'm pacing the halls, feeling like I need to hit something, need to drive my sword into my bedpost for the 100th time. After all my years of training and mastering my masks, it's always been my father who is the only one able to make me lose control. I drag my hand through my hair as I make my way back towards the room, collecting myself with every step.
Kai.
I run a hand down my face, sighing as I spin to face a very unhappy Kit.
What the hell was that?
He asks harshly. I almost laugh. That was one of the more civil conversations we've had, and you know it. Kit heaves a sigh, sounding tired.
Look, I know your relationship with Father is difficult. I get it. After all the training he put you through, and the expectations he has for you now, believe me, I get why you two have trouble getting along. But everything he does is for the best.
I scoff and shake my head at the ceiling, wondering if Kit will ever stop trying to prove himself to the king. You know, you might think differently if he had cut you open as a boy and watched you try to stitch the wound. I take a step towards him. Or maybe after being forced to face your worst fears over and over and over again, you would realize that not everything he does is for the best. I laugh bitterly, and Kit nearly flinches at the sound. He made me a murderer, molded me into a monster. But that was for the best, right? I jab a finger into his chest as I say, that was for your benefit, so you can use me when you're king, just like he has. Wrong thing to say. The words hit him like a physical blow. I see the shock and hurt settle on his face as I force myself to take a step back, to calm down. I'm losing my temper for reasons I don't even understand, and that is only making me angrier. It's as though every pent-up piece of my past is fighting to free itself, fighting to flood to the surface.
Kai,
I think you will make a great king, Kit, I say quietly, cutting through his words. And I will proudly serve you. But you need to learn to think on your own, because one day Father won't be there to do it for you. So, I suggest you start figuring out what you think is for the best. And with that,
Lord, I'm hooked on the mast.
may have cheated death of its intended victim, but I gave it a life, nonetheless. I borrowed Blair's power and nudged fate in another direction, and it found Braxton. But I wouldn't hesitate to do it again, and again, and again, to save that silver-haired girl. Quite the team, Death and I. But I've had 3 days to recover from the trial. 3 long days spent in the training ground, slicked with sweat, or locked within a study with my father's silencer, where I am also likely drenched in sweat. Damien pushes me hard, smothering me with his ability while I fight to use it against him. Whether it's my body or brain aching from either type of training, I welcome it. Distraction is the best form of passing the time, and I seem to have a lot of things I wish to be distracted from these days.
Kai? Are you listening, boy?
I give my head a shake, returning to the conversation at hand. Intently, Father. The king sighs deeply, and Kit cuts me a look. We've been stuffed in this study for hours, discussing everything from guard rotations to the resistance, which we have no new information on since the few prisoners from the attack at the first ball are now all dead. Although Father doesn't seem particularly concerned by that fact now, and has instead been talking about the trials for far longer than I have been listening. He eyes the two of us as he asks slowly,
It is interesting how the slumber girl won this last one, don't you think?
I stiffen, and I think Kit might have done the same. I all but handed the victory to her, choosing revenge over winning, torture over triumph. I wonder if Father knows this, knows that I let her walk over to that flag without another thought, knows that I smiled at the sight of her, strong and sure, as she raised that flag into the air. She won fairly. I don't find that interesting. The words are out of my mouth before I can think better of them. A humorless chuckle fills the room.
That's just the thing,
Father says, green eyes piercing through me in a way Kit's never could.
Slummers don't win.
I stiffen at the word he spits, but don't dare to break his stare. And yet she did. Kit shoots me a look, but my eyes are pinned on the king as he says,
And you better not let it happen again. Don't forget that it is you who must win these trials, and if you need me to remind you what will happen if you don't, I will.
He leans forward, his voice lethal.
I trained you for this, so you will not disappoint me. Understood, Enforcer?
The threat in his tone is clear, and I hear it ringing in my ears. Lose, and you are nothing. Understood, Your Majesty. And with that, I stand on my feet and stride out the door. I'm pacing the halls, feeling like I need to hit something, needed to drive my sword into my bedpost for the 100th time. After all my years of training and mastering my masks, it's always been my father who is the only one able to make me lose control. I drag my hand through my hair as I make my way back towards the room, collecting myself with every step.
Kai.
I run a hand down my face, sighing as I spin to face a very unhappy Kit.
What the hell was that?
He asks harshly. I almost laugh. That was one of the more civil conversations we've had, and you know it. Kit heaves a sigh, sounding tired.
Look, I know your relationship with Father is difficult. I get it. After all the training he put you through, and the expectations he has for you now, believe me, I get why you two have trouble getting along. But everything he does is for the best.
I scoff and shake my head at the ceiling, wondering if Kit will ever stop trying to prove himself to the king. You know, you might think differently if he had cut you open as a boy and watched you try to stitch the wound. I take a step towards him. Or maybe after being forced to face your worst fears over and over and over again, you would realize that not everything he does is for the best. I laugh bitterly, and Kit nearly flinches at the sound. He made me a murderer, molded me into a monster. But that was for the best, right? I jab a finger into his chest as I say, that was for your benefit, so you can use me when you're king, just like he has. Wrong thing to say. The words hit him like a physical blow. I see the shock and hurt settle on his face as I force myself to take a step back, to calm down. I'm losing my temper for reasons I don't even understand, and that is only making me angrier. It's as though every pent-up piece of my past is fighting to free itself, fighting to flood to the surface. Kai, I think you will make a great king, Kit, I say quietly, cutting through his words. And I will proudly serve you. But you need to learn to think on your own, because one day Father won't be there to do it for you. So, I suggest you start figuring out what you think is for the best. And with that, I turn and head down the hall.
Chapter 45. Payden. The gardens are quiet at night. Only the chorus of chirping crickets and the soft howl of the wind follow me as I make my way to the familiar willow bordering the open lawn where the last ball took place. I've come here often since that night, finding comfort in the shelter of the shadowy willow when I can't sleep. I've grown used to sitting under there for hours, simply allowing myself time to think. Brushing aside the low-hanging branches, I step beneath the canopy of leaves. I sigh, suddenly feeling more settled as I breathe in the warm night air. But the peace I feel is short-lived when a shadow shifts beside the trunk. I whirl, my fingers flying towards the dagger at my thigh, only to be caught by a rough hand. Easy, Gray. It's just me. I blink through the darkness as my eyes adjust to the dim light, landing on the amused gray ones before me. What are you doing here? I sputter. I could ask you the same question. And I could have stabbed you. Kai's brows raise. So you're not going to try? I'd say that's progress. Oh, but I should for you scaring me like that. He lets go of my hand slowly, studying me all the while. I scared you? You're the one who crept up on me. Well, I didn't exactly know you would be here, I whisper harshly. Clearly, he says with a smirk twisting his lips. But you're more than welcome to stay. And then he settles himself onto the ground, looking rather comfortable with his arm tucked behind his head. I stare at him. What are you doing? Waiting for you to get down here and join me? I stand there, watching the slow smile spread across his face. Is it the dress? He asks as he sits up and begins shrugging off his suit coat. When it's slid off his shoulders, he lays it on the ground beside him. There, now you won't get all dirty. I look down at the simple silk dress I slipped on for our dinner with the king and queen. It's rather comfortable, and I was far too lazy to take it off before making my way out here. Kai must have felt similarly, since he's still wearing his fine attire. But my hesitance to join him has nothing to do with dirtying my dress, and everything to do with the fact that I shouldn't stay here. What I should do is turn, wish him good night, and head back to my room without another word. And yet, my feet make no move to carry me away from him. He pats the coat expectantly, and the sight has a choked laugh slipping past my lips. How very gentlemanly of you, but that coat is not nearly big enough to save my dress from getting dirty. I can take off my shirt and lay that down for you as well, if you like, he says casually. On second thought, I mutter, the coat will suffice. He chuckles, and I'm suddenly walking towards him, ignoring my screaming thoughts that tell me to do otherwise. I sit and slowly lie down beside him, our shoulders brushing. We're quiet for a long moment, both of us content to stare up at the drooping canopy of leaves above while listening to the crickets chirping beside us. I'm almost reluctant to break the comfortable quiet, but I ask softly, "Why are you here?" He almost laughs. "I've been coming here since I was a boy. In fact, I fell out of this very tree after Kit dared me to climb it. Broke my arm, too." A bubble of laughter slips past my lips, cutting him off. "Are you laughing at me, Gray?" He's trying to fight his own smile as he adds, "I'm glad you find my pain so amusing." I clear my throat, trying to compose myself. "So what, you come here to reminisce on the fond memory?" "Something like that," he sighs. "I come here to think, to cool off. I've always liked the quiet out here, the escape from the palace." He glances over at me before asking, "So why are you here?" I smile slightly and echo his words. "To think. I like the quiet, the escape." I see his lips twitch out of the corner of my eye, and we're quiet for a moment before I ask, "Is there a reason you dragged me down onto the dirt?" I look over at his shadowy profile as he stares at the branches above us. "To talk, to lie here in silence." He shrugs lazily. "It doesn't really matter." I look away from him. "So you just want someone to keep you company?" "Not someone. You." I can feel his eyes on me, but I don't turn to look at him. "Do you want quiet company or talking company?" He makes a sound that might have been a laugh. "Only you would ask me my preference on your company." I finally turn my head to meet his gaze. That wasn't an answer. He's quiet for a long moment, seeming to study my face, search my eyes. "Talk to me." I stare at him, my voice suddenly very quiet when I finally ask, "About what?" I watch a faint smile curve his lips. "Anything. Everything. What you're thinking at this very moment, darling." I almost laugh. "Well, I'm currently thinking that this coat I'm lying on is far too itchy for a prince to wear." He chuckles while I add, "And I'm also wondering how many bones you and Kit broke." "Too many," Kai sighs, shaking his head. "It was mostly me with the broken bones and injuries, though not all of them were due to Kit's brilliant ideas." He pauses. "Most were from my training, especially when I was learning to use a healer's ability." When his words sink in, I stiffen. "You don't mean—" I trail off before trying again. "You didn't have to—" "Yes, I did," he says simply, looking me right in the eyes. "I had to break my bones and then heal them. Or sometimes I'd be sliced open with a sword and have to learn to stitch my own skin back together." He says this so casually that I can't even begin to imagine the horrors he has been forced through. "How do you not hate him?" I whisper. Silence stretches between us. The small smile he wears is sad. "Because he made me strong." He says this far too calmly, and I want to shake him out of his cool composure. It doesn't matter how strong the king made him. The prince before me has been nothing but a pawn created by the man he calls father. The thought makes me sick, makes me want to scream. And yet, I understand. His words strike me, hitting home. Our lives seem to share sad similarities, unfortunate fates. Both our childhoods consisted of training to become what we had to be, neither of us growing up the way we wished. Except the fathers who raised us couldn't be more different. One doing everything out of love, the other out of greed. People aren't born strong. They're made that way. And the prince and I know that better than most. Kai continues casually, as though his words didn't just knock the air from my lungs. "Well, Kit and I suffered several injuries for our stupidity, but not all of our games were dangerous. In fact, because our favorite activities as boys likely consisted of some sort of violence, my tutor would make us sit and play games she considered safe." He heaves a sigh. We considered them boring. Oh, really? I huff out a laugh. What games? Well, he reaches out a hand to take hold of mine. Madame Platt's personal favorite to torture us with was Thumb Wars, though we'd still find a way to make even those violent. Thumb Wars? My brows crinkle in confusion. That has the word war in it, and it's still considered safe? I've never seen Kai look so bewildered before, and I nearly laugh again. You've never heard of a thumb war? His own thumb strokes over my knuckles, forcing me to focus on my next words. Well, in the slums, the only game I tended to play was trying to guess how many coins were in someone's pocket before I stole them. The corner of his mouth kicks upward. And did you play that game before you robbed me? No, but I would have lost if I had, I huff. You had far more silvers than I'd ever seen in one place. Well, only until you stole half of them. I smile at that, and he watches me quietly for a moment. When my eyes drop to where he's still holding my hand and distracting me with that thumb still sliding over my knuckles, he clears his throat and finally says, Well, the game I'm going to teach you isn't nearly as fun as yours, I'm sure. Then he shakes his head at me, muttering under his breath. I cannot believe you don't know what a thumb war is. Well, from the way you talk about it, it doesn't seem like I'm missing out on much. Very fair point. His lips twitch into a smirk. And that's exactly why I'm going to teach it to you, so we can suffer together. He twists onto his side and props himself up on an elbow, watching as I do the same. The rules of this very riveting game are simple. He curls our fingers together as I watch. Then he chuckles and reaches out with his other hand to pull my thumb into the air. Now, you win by pinning the other person's thumb down, but you have to keep your hand and arm still. He peeks up at me and asks, Understand? I frown at our joined hands. I'm starting to understand why you find this game so boring. He laughs before muttering, Go. I don't even have time to react before his thumb is crushing mine, pinning it to my hand. When he looks up at me, his smile is smug. I really thought your reflexes would be quicker than that, Gray. I wasn't ready, Azur. Well, that's kind of the whole point of reflexes. I half-heartedly roll my eyes at him. You're insufferable. And yet, you're still here, he says softly, his eyes bright even in the dim light as they flick between mine. We are quiet for a moment as I assess how to beat him at this game. Per usual, distraction seems to be the best option, so I say, Tell me something I don't know about you. He only seems slightly surprised by my random request, but it only takes him a moment to answer. Blueberries. I don't like them. I choke back my laugh. You don't like blueberries? No, I take it back. He pauses, seeming to consider something. I hate blueberries. Is there a reason for this loathing? Have you tasted them? He asks, and I nod in answer. Then there, that's my reason. They're disgusting. I huff out a laugh, and when he opens his mouth to say something, I cut him off with a quiet, Go. My thumb lands on his, and I'm about to brag my victory when he easily slips it out from beneath mine. And then, once again, he has my thumb pinned. Adorable effort to distract me, darling. I sigh in frustration. I see why you hate this game. No, I hate this game because it's boring. You hate this game because you're bad at it. I glare at him, and he grins at me. His thumb sweeps down the length of mine, and I refuse to tear my eyes from his. Now, he says slowly, tell me something I don't know about you. Easy. I give him a bright smile. I love blueberries. Kai groans. Of course you do. They're just delicious. I mean, talk about the perfect blend of tart and sweet and... I am never going to hear the end of this, am I? Honestly, I think they might be the best fruit out there. I could easily eat them with every meal and... Kai leans closer and sighs out an exasperated, Peyton. I clamp my mouth shut at the sound of my name. I am content to listen to you talk for hours, but if you must speak about fruit, then at least pick one we both enjoy. I press my lips together to smother my smile. The future enforcer is willing to listen to me ramble about fruit. The thought has me on the verge of both bursting out in laughter and blushing from head to toe. Fair enough, I say simply. How about oranges? He makes a face. I don't like pulp. Fine. Bananas? I hate the texture. Is there any fruit you do like? I huff, shaking my head at him. You are the pickiest prince I know. I am one of 2 princes, you know, and trust me, Kit is not much better than I am. I give him a pointed look. I'm still waiting to hear a fruit you don't find repulsive. He's quiet for a moment, pondering his answer, while his thumb runs idly over mine. Strawberries. I blink at him. I love strawberries. A slow smile tips up his lips. And I find them not repulsive. Good. Good. Go. The word tumbles from my mouth, and I take advantage of his surprise. Determination drives me as I fight to pin his thumb down, moving my hand and arm in the process. I nearly fall on top of him to finally get my thumb to land on his, though I've broken the rules to do it. And then I'm suddenly being tugged fully against his body. He yanks on my arm, pulling me close enough to count the dark lashes surrounding his eyes. You cheated, Gray. I did what I had to do to win, Asser. He hums, and I feel it vibrate through his chest. I suppose it's my fault for forgetting what a vicious little thing you are. Well, The words die in my throat when he uncurls his hand from mine and trails his fingers down my arm. I suppress a shiver at his sudden touch, but the smile that lifts his lips tells me it didn't go unnoticed. I take it back, he says softly. This game isn't boring in the least bit when I play it with you. His gaze has dropped to the fingers gliding over my arm, and I still under his gentle touch. I'm not sure how long we stay like that, listening to the wind rustling the leaves above us as we study one another. And it's only when his fingers trail at my neck to tuck a stray piece of hair behind my ear that I finally come to my senses. I should go. The unsure words hang between us, barely more than a whisper that the wind nearly steals away. That doesn't sound like what you want to do at all, he murmurs. I refuse to even puzzle out what it is that I want to do, so I say instead, one of these days I'm going to beat you fairly in a thumb war, and then you won't find it so fun. He chuckles softly, followed by an equally soft murmur. It's not the winning I find fun. It's you, darling. After a moment too long, I pull myself out of his hold and sit up slowly. The night has grown colder, and without the heat of Kai's body next to mine, my thin dress does little to keep me warm. Kai sits up beside me and wraps his jacket around my shoulders. You're right. That coat is far too itchy for a prince to wear. Then his lips twitch into a smirk. So I'll let you wear it instead.